for those of you that were here at our first debate, I'd like to thank all of you so much for coming back. And for those of you that this is your first debate, I hope you're in for a fantastic debate filled with a lot of policy issues and really discussing the platforms of our different candidates. Before we would begin, just a couple of different ground rules for our candidates and for our audience. Please reserve all clapping and applaud for the end. We want to make sure that we can do it in the most efficient way possible and make sure that our candidates have the most ample amount of time to speak. Each candidate will have 2 minutes to give an opening statement, and following that, we will be going on to the different policy areas that really affect all of us in this room right now. Each candidate will have 2 minutes per speech, so they'll have as much time within that period as they would like. For their timing, I will give 1 tap at 30 seconds remaining and 2 taps when their time is up. Please make sure that you don't go too far over time, just to make sure that all of our candidates have a great amount of time to speak. So without further ado, we're going to be going on to our Group 5 debate. First, Mr. Ricky Ariola. And Mr. Mark Whitehorn. Additionally, we have passed index cards and pens to everyone in the audience, and we'll be having our fantastic volunteers Sergio Shapiro and Rory Feinberg. I couldn't have done it without you. Thank you so much for coming. They'll be the ones to collect all of your past questions, and they'll give you another index card just to give more questions up to me as the moderator. So whenever anyone has a question about what's going on in debate, please give it to them and they'll pass it up to me. So now each candidate will give a 2-minute opening statement in alphabetical order. So Mr. Ariola, you're up first.
Hello? Wow, okay, great. Are you keeping time?
Yeah.
Okay, give me a second. Okay. Hi, folks. Ricky Ariola, running for Group 5, City Commission. It's nice to see so many of you. Thanks for coming out here on Saturday. I am running for Miami Beach City Commission because we are facing generational challenges that if we don't address, generations from now, we're going to look back and say, shame on us. We have serious issues. We live in a great city. We have serious issues dealing with infrastructure primarily. We have to get our flooding under control. We just saw last week how bad things can get. Weather predictions say it's going to get worse. We have to get our pumps done. We've got to get our streets done. We have to prepare for sea level rise. Moreover, it's time to start tackling mass transit in a serious manner to deal with traffic and congestion in our community. These are big ticket items that require professionals, that require bold leadership to prepare for the future. I'm that leader. I want to be here for you to deal with the infrastructure problems that our city has. Secondarily, we have quality of life issues that relate to our parks, our beaches, crime, homelessness. All of these issues also have to be addressed. All of these things between infrastructure and these quality of life issues affect the way we live day to day as residents here in Miami Beach. These issues have been unattended for too long, and it's time that we start tackling them in a very serious manner. I want to bring those solutions to you, and I think we're going to get into some of those issues shortly. Born and raised in Miami.
You can continue. We'll give 2 taps when you have no time remaining, 1 tap at 30 seconds.
Okay, that did count towards my...
Yeah,
Many of you already heard a little bit about my bio, but I'll do a little quick. Born and raised in Miami, moved to the beach 15 years ago. I live here south of 5th, been very involved in our community, both in Miami Beach and the county, my entire professional career as chairman of the board of the Adrian R. Center. Turned that around at a time when I was struggling. Currently, I serve as the chair of the Group Panel for North Beach. We've been on a charter review board, we've got a cultural arts council, numerous other organizations here in Miami and in Miami Beach. Care deeply about our community, and I want to be your next city commissioner to lead in the future.
Mr. Whitehorn.
Thank you, Benjamin. You know, he scares me. I just want to get it out there. I was here 2 weeks ago during the mayoral debate, and we've been in a lot of debates, and he's the toughest question here. Okay, just get it out. You should be very proud. Hi, I'm Mark Whitehorn. I'm running for commission in Group 5. I first moved here in 1980. Dee Dee's my wife. She's there. Say hi, Dee Dee. We raised our boys here. Our boys went to Nautilus. Well, first I went to Beth Shalom and then Foundation School, and then the North Beach Elementary, the Nautilus and Beach High. Our eldest graduated medical school. He's living in New York, and our youngest is presently going to Washington University Law School in St. Louis, and we're very proud of our boys. And they're products of this area. We've been involved in the beach for a long time. Since 1988, I was involved with the Chamber of Commerce trying to revive Ocean Drive and Lincoln Road, because back then it was deplorable. You didn't go below 5th Street. My wife, she was involved with educational components. We were a founding family of Friends of North Beach Elementary. Presently, I chair the city's Transportation and Parking Committee. And as an advisory committee to the commission, we have been working on different items. For example, one of the things that we accomplished is there's a bus called the Flyer, which goes from the airport to the beach and back around. Lo and behold, a lot of people who ride the Flyer aren't people flying in from out of town, they're people who work on the beach. We have to work on mass transit issues. It's really important in this town. I was really disturbed 2 weeks ago when the pumps failed. I want to know why. We're spending $400 million on pumps. I want to know what's going on. And then we have streets and neighborhoods that are unfixed and cracked, and neighborhoods that have been redone that are still flooding. So those are some of the issues I'll be working on. We'll get into that because.
Thank you, Mr. Whitehorn. In late 2014, Forbes found that the city of Miami Beach had some of the worst traffic that the state of Florida has ever seen. Mr. Whitehorn, if you were elected to the Miami Beach City Commission, what different policy areas would you address to make sure that we reduce congestion in the city of Miami Beach?
How much time do I have? 2 minutes. Thank you. So there's several different things. If you go to my website, markwhitehorn2015.com, you'll see many different things that deal with traffic and parking and stuff like that. One issue that we have is we have thousands of people who work on the beach that don't have reliable mass transit to get here. So they have to drive here, and then they don't have parking provided for them because their employers don't pay for it. So they infiltrate the neighborhoods and they park there. We need to first get reliable bus service from the mainland, starting where Metro Rail is, and get it to the beach. And then we have a trolley system that we're setting up. I was at a tour a week ago of the mid-beach trolley of the different stops. And we'll take care of the people once they get here. Eventually, we'll need to build bailing. And we can also build a parking garage on the east end of the Julia Tuttle Causeway for people to park and then shuttle them around. That's going to get thousands of cars off the street. The mindset of the state and the local county is how to move cars. We need to change that mindset. For example, the express lane down I-95 should not have been an express lane down I-95. It should have been a rail system to get people from the Golden Blades interchange to Metro Rail. Get thousands of cars off the street. There's so many things that we need to do, and as a commissioner, I'm going to be working on those ideas. Thank you.
Mr. Ariola, same question.
Okay. Real simple. We have to get serious about mass transit. We have to catch up to the great cities around the world that have light rail and similar solutions to move people around. It is a middle-class economic stimulus to have mass transit that moves our workforces around, it moves millennials, it moves elderly, folks who don't necessarily want to be in cars or don't have cars. It is essential that Miami Beach catch up with the times. I talk about wanting to bring Miami Beach into the 21st century. That includes mass transit solutions, rail, water taxis, new technology like Uber, not just Uber, but Uber pooling, which will start car sharing, ride sharing. The other thing I talk about, I want us to be the #1 most bike and pedestrian friendly city in the United States. So let's stop being in our cars and let's be able to walk around the city. Let's be able to ride our bikes safely and comfortably and have ample parking for bicycles as well. But that's basically it. We have to get serious about mass transit. We can't talk anymore. We have to get serious about it.
Mr. Whitehorn, what's the best way to make sure that infrastructure development in terms of reducing congestion can be fiscally sustainable in the city of Miami Beach?
Sure. So there's two parts of a city budget. There's the capital part of it where you build things, and then there's the daily operations. When you build something, you have to make sure that it can sustain itself, and then you have to make sure that you maintain it. That's really important. The idea that I had for the parking garage on the east end of the Julia Tuttle Causeway, people will pay to park there, so that can pay for itself. We have other sources of revenue. We have tourism dollars. When people, bed taxes and restaurant taxes, when people come and stay in our hotels, there's extra dollars there. Those dollars need to supplement some of these mass transit ideas. So once you start doing that, you're going to start relieving the streets. Now, one of the other problems we have is in parking. When the Florida Department of Transportation came into neighborhoods, they started striping off parking spaces. And I've been looking at this going, that's a perfectly good parking space. Why did they do that? For example, I go to Panera on Altman 14th a lot. There's a parking space right there, and I was going to go park there, and it's striped off. And I'm like, why is that? In North Beach, on Harding Avenue, hundreds of spaces striped off. We need to look at getting those back. Some of the bigger streets in the Flamingo Park neighborhood, there's got to be a reason. There's got to be a way to do diagonal parking to bring in more parking into those areas. So there's a lot that we have to look at. I have ideas on how to do that, but you know the city's not doing it. We need to get it done. Thank you, sir.
Actually, Mr. Whitehorn talked a lot about hotels and resort taxes, but I think there's a hotel that all of us know about. The Convention Center Hotel is definitely a controversial issue among residents. Do you think that we should continue the development of a Convention Center Hotel on Miami Beach?
Yeah, absolutely. I think we need a convention center hotel. I've talked to many experts. I used to be on the board of the Greater Miami Convention Visitors Bureau. I travel a lot for business. It's essential if you're going to draw conventions to town that you have a dedicated convention center hotel, ideally adjacent to the convention center. That's just the way that end of the business works, and it has a huge economic stimulus to our economy to have that. So I absolutely favor the convention center hotel.
Mr. Whitehorn, do you agree with Mr. Ariola that we should build a convention center hotel?
Yes, I do. All the studies that have been done that show that certain shows that want to come here need that hotel. We just went to Hong Kong for the Art Basel, and we stayed at the Renaissance Hotel, beautiful hotel, and we walked a corridor, and we were in the convention center. And we need to make a transition. We need to get away from consumer shows like auto shows and boat shows where people drive to the beach, clog our neighborhoods, look at the show, get back in their cars, and then leave. But we need to go to more conferences like podiatrists and things like that. They fly in, they take a cab, they stay in our hotels and things like that, and we never know they're here, but they spend millions of dollars. So we need to make that transition. What concerns me about the present proposal for the Convention Center Hotel is it is a 30-story building. And I have a problem with that. We have a perfectly good parking lot across the street from the Convention Center where you can build a facility there where it'll be lower, it'll be better because you're not squeezing it into a little spot, and it'll work perfectly. So I think we need to look at that. This is going to have to go in front of the voters, whether we want a 30-story tower, and I've been knocking on lots of doors, and the people I've been talking to are not in favor of a 30-tower story in that neighborhood. It's just going to overwhelm the neighborhood.
Mr. Ariola, is Mr. Whitehorn right that a 30-story hotel would not be sustainable and not be efficient in the city of Miami Beach for the convention center?
Well, a 30-story hotel is sustainable. I mean, economically, where there's 30 stories, whatever, 800 rooms going 30 stories or 800 rooms going 6 stories. It's just a matter of how do you want to build it. The trade-off that I'm willing to make is one for height if we get another park. I'm a big proponent of green space. I think we need more green space. And so the trade-off that the current proposal asks of us as citizens is to allow the hotel to go to 30 stories, but in exchange we get a 6-acre park in that neighborhood. And I, for one, I'm willing to make that trade if we get more green space.
Where do you suggest that we build a 6-acre park in Miami Beach?
It's there in the parking lot. Where the current surface parking lot is, next to the convention center.
Thank you. Another huge issue that Miami Beach residents have faced throughout this election season is historic preservation in the city of Miami Beach. Mr. Arreola, if you were elected to the Miami Beach City Commission, how would you balance historic preservation and development in Miami Beach city neighborhoods?
So it's essential that we preserve our heritage, and that includes all residential historic homes and residential commercial buildings that are truly historic. We have to protect them, okay? And that's part of infrastructure, making sure that our heritage is preserved, and not just preserved for today, but for the future. So I'm a big proponent for historic preservation in neighborhoods and in commercial districts.
Mr. Whitehorn, I have a question from Mark in the audience. He asked, what's the best way to make sure that historic preservation rules don't hurt our homeowners and business owners in Miami Beach? What's the best way they can continue building infrastructure without the rules making it really inefficient for them to do so?
Okay, I just like, before I answer that, can I just dovetail on what he said?
Yeah, go ahead.
There's a hardship right now with a lot of people who live in the beach because all these big white boxes are going up next to their homes. And it's causing problems. People are not happy. There are signs all over the beach that say, preserve our homes. And there's a reason why it's there. It's because it's affecting our quality of life. If you're going to build something, if you're going to tear down an older home, first you have to get permission from the Historic Preservation Board. And if you build something, we have to have proper design guidelines. It must blend into the neighborhood. You can't have beautiful Mediterranean style and then big white box. And then the second story needs to be tapered in so it doesn't overwhelm the neighborhood. And I'm going to be working on that when I'm a commissioner. Now,
what's the best possible way to make sure that our historic preservation rules in the Miami Beach City Code don't make Miami Beach City homeowners and business owners struggle to continue maintaining their infrastructure?
Actually, the inverse has happened. If you look at other cities like Charleston, South Carolina, okay, where they have historic preservation, home values have gone up. So the inverse is true, and that's the learning curve that a lot of people have to learn, is that historic preservation doesn't diminish from your home value. The biggest concern people have is, oh my God, I won't be able to sell my house because it's historic in nature. But if you look at our Historic Preservation Board, they aren't as strict as you would think. They're not overbearing. If a house doesn't deem to be safe, they allow you to tear it down, so it's not an issue. But then there's other homes that should not have been torn down, and it's sad to see them go.
Mr. Arreola, what type of impact do you think that rising property values would have on low-income constituents in the city of Miami Beach?
That's a great question. So we are starting to chase out, because of rising home prices, our middle class. Okay, and that's a problem. That's not sustainable for the long-term health of our community, and I'm very worried about it. And I want to see more workforce housing being built in our community so that we can sustain ourselves going forward in the future. But the dramatic rise in property values, while it's good for property owners, it has made Miami Beach very difficult to afford for young families and millennials. And so you see it across the bay. All the millennials, all the young professionals in the creative class are all moving to Miami, Wynwood, these areas. And that's not good for our long-term future. So we need to come up with ways to create more workforce housing in our community. And government plays a big role in that, creating incentives and zoning ordinance changes so that we can attract those kinds of investments to provide that kind of housing.
Mr. Whitehorn, in the past couple weeks, the idea of tearing down Rebecca Towers has been a controversial one, to say the least, among residents.
Sorry?
The Rebecca Towers, what is your opinion on whether we should keep them or get rid of them?
We need to keep them, point blank. We are on a precipice in Miami Beach. There are a handful of lobbyists that are trying to take control of Miami Beach. They're trying to have it for sale, and they want candidates or they want commissioners up there who are going to allow them to have their way. And basically, in my opinion, Miami Beach is not for sale. Plain and simple. We have a good quality of life here, and we need to maintain it, and we need to fight for it, and I'm going to do that. What happened with Rebecca Towers, or what potentially could happen with Rebecca Towers, is disgusting. There's two towers there. There's the South Tower and the North Tower. The South Tower has a covenant, but the North Tower does not. And there is potential for redevelopment there, and you need commissioners up on the dais who are going to say, no, we're not doing that. We have to protect our seniors. One of the issues about affordable housing, in North Beach, we have some property owners who want to rehab some of the buildings, some of the MIMO buildings, but then they want to do short-term rentals. The North Beach Blue Ribbon Task Force many times has voted in favor of short-term rentals. We can't do that. We have to tell these property owners, no, you're not doing short-term rentals that are disruptive to the neighborhood. Instead, you're going to rent these out, and then you'll get your workforce housing.
Mr. Ariola, same question. Should we keep Rebecca Towers or should we get rid of them?
Real simple. Keep them and do everything we can to make them better. I've been to Rebecca Towers many times. It's something that we as a community should be very proud of, the way we take care of our seniors in Rebecca Towers, as well as all of our other assisted elderly housing. Something we should be very proud of and preserve. And I, for one, will never, ever, ever let anything happen to our seniors in this community. My opponent and others think it's cute to scare people, make up stuff. That will never, ever, ever happen if I'm commissioner. Very simple.
Thank you. The Miami-Dade County Public Schools finds that there's over 3 times as many low-income students in North Miami Beach as opposed to Mid and South Miami Beach. Mr. Whitehorn, if you were elected to the Miami Beach City Commission, how would you make sure that we continue to develop North Beach economically?
Well, this Cane Point Elementary, I think it's an A school now. It has really improved. But what we need to do as a city is have supplemental programs, after-school programs, things like that. And as a city, we can do that. We're governed by the school board as far as what monies we have for schools and what programs we have. But as a city, once that 3 o'clock bell comes around, we can do other things for our students to help enhance their education, and I think that's really important. My boys, when they grew up, they had supplemental programs. They did it all the time, and it helped evolve them beyond just reading and writing and arithmetic. So the city was good at that, and we have to make sure the city continues. There was another program for pre-K, and it came in front of the city commission, and it was about $250,000, but the problem was we're spending money needlessly at the city. The Office of the Mayor's budget went up $1 million. We have photographers and chauffeurs and things like that. And we have other things like that, if you can go through line in the budget, and we need to start decreasing some of those things. Right now our budget's going up 7.5%, which is unsustainable because right now we're at the height of a real estate boom. Real estate booms go up and down. When it goes down, we will not be able to sustain a 7.5% growth. And by having dollars in these unnecessary things, you take away money from things like voluntary pre-K or other issues.
Mr. Ariola, what's the best way to bring businesses to North Beach?
Okay, great. So as a businessman, started my own business, grew it to 1,000 employees currently, got offices all around the state. I know a thing or two about building businesses from the ground up. One of the things you can do, when you're talking about sort of the entrepreneur, the small business person, is to make sure that as government, you don't get in the way with unnecessary red tape and delays. Because it's one thing for like Apple to go to Lincoln Road. They can afford the legal fees and the accountants and all the expediters for permitting and stuff like that, and all that time and delay and cost. But the small guy cannot open their little shop if they have those same burdens that an Apple does. So as government, we have to make sure that we we get out of the way. We have the very basic things that they need to open their stores and get running. And the other thing we have to do as government is to enforce code, so that if you open a store and the store next to you is operating illegally, that affects your business, we can do something there. Also, just keeping the area clean, crime-free, that helps businesses also. The city also provides dollars for things like awning and facelift support for some of the buildings. That kind of stuff we can do to beautify an area that will attract business and small businesses to areas like North Beach, which are in need of economic revitalization.
Thank you.
Can I respond to that?
Yeah, go ahead, Mr. White.
So I'm part of North Beach Development Corporation. I'm past president. I am now the treasurer. And in 2006, during the economic boom, we were working with developers who were building some of the buildings you see on Indian Creek and stuff like that. And then the economy changed, and we started working with police and code to make sure that North Beach was clean and safe. And we got rid of a lot of drug dealers and gangs, and we made sure all the properties were clean. But to get back to the answer to your question, it's government's role to build infrastructure. So this way, the private sector can take over. Now, one of the infrastructures we need is proper mass transit, to allow to have your workforce housing and things like that, so people can come and work and live there and play there. North Beach is a lovely neighborhood. There's lots of stuff there that you can do. So that's government's role, is to create the infrastructure to allow private enterprise to take over. We've made some progress, but we need to do more.
Thank you.
Questions from the audience?
We're going to pass them up on index cards. So, we're good. All questions from the audience will be done through index cards and pens. So our volunteers in the back will be passing out index cards and collecting them to bring them up to me. From fiscal year 2011 to 2014, the City of Miami Beach saw a reduction in the budgeted amount of money for parks and recreation each and every single year. Mr. Ariola, if you were elected to the Miami Beach City Commission, what ambiguities in the Miami Beach City Code would you change to make sure that we can free up more money for activities like parks and recreation?
Having world-class parks and beaches, even though some of that's county control, is essential to a thriving and world-class community. So I will do everything I can to make sure that our parks are not just adequately funded, but the programming that's going into those parks actually works. So I've talked to a lot of families, a lot of parents whose children go and use our park system, and they say basically it's storage for children, right? So you show up and you leave your kids there, and basically they're there until you go pick them up, but there's not enough activities going on. So it's also the quality of the programming that's happening in the parks needs to improve. And it's something that as a community we must do. And I will do everything I can to make them. It is already one of my top priorities to have world-class parks and beaches.
Mr. Whitehorn, same question. How can we free up more money to make sure that our parks and recreations and different youth activities in the city of Miami Beach are improved?
You know, our boys, I'm sorry. Our boys grew up in that system. The best program they loved was fishing camp. They used to get up in the morning, they had the rods and the reels and the case full of all the lures and everything, and they'd go out and they'd fish. They wouldn't bring anything home, it was always catch and release. And they'd come back, and the first thing we did was stick them in the shower because they smelled like I don't know what. They loved it. They absolutely loved it. My younger son, he memorized every single fish. We need to set priorities. This is what government does. We take our youth, we take our families, and we raise them, we nurture them. This is what we do. We have a budget. Right now we're spending $1 million in photographers and chauffeurs and PR people. That could be used for a lot of programs for kids. We need to set our priority. We're spending $50,000 on orchids. Okay? How many lower income kids, what can you do with $50,000 for these lower income kids? We need to set our priorities in that budget. And I'm going to go through that budget line by line, and I'm going to be screaming, no, we don't need a staff photographer. No, we don't need a chauffeur. No, we don't need $50,000 for orchids. We need to free up these dollars for our youth and our seniors and the underprivileged.
Unfortunately, in recent years, the city of Miami Beach has become synonymous with the word flooding. As long as last week, we saw that flooding is such a large issue in the city of Miami Beach that it has to be addressed. Mr. Ariola, if you're elected to the Miami Beach City Commission, what would be the first policy action you take to quell the rise of flooding in the city?
There's no one magic bullet, it's a process. We have close to 60 pumps that are going to be installed throughout the city to deal with flooding. We're about 10% of the way there. What I will do is I will make sure we'll get it done as expeditiously as possible and on budget. That will be one of my top priorities.
Mr.
Whitehorn, same question. How can we reduce flooding in the city?
So, you know, there's different things you need to do. The pumps are important, but last week some of the pumps failed. Okay, they didn't work. We're spending $400 million on pumps, and the power went out. My question was, are they not waterproof? So, that was a joke. I'm sorry. You're supposed to laugh. So thank you. I went past the pump station on Chase and 34th Street, and there was a big generator truck there. I took a picture of it, I posted it online. So the first thing we need to do is make sure that the pumps that we put in work, and that they're not polluting the bay. Okay, because a lot of talk about that. I had a tour with an engineer where they push the water down into the ground, into the aquifer, and we have to make sure that which method is better. When you build a house, you need to have a certain amount of green space to absorb the water. And we need to make sure that we have it in our building code that houses that do that have that green space. Seawalls are an issue, and I know that a lot of these buildings, especially on Tatum Waterway and North Beach, they don't have the money to do that. We need to come up with an incentivized ways to allow these people to raise their seawalls. Maybe we loan them the money over time and make it affordable for these property owners to do that. But until we raise those seawalls, we're not gonna keep the water out.
Mr. Ariola, I have a question from the audience. They want to know what solutions would you implement to make sure that our waterways are clean?
That's a great question. So this has come up. We have to do more. I'm a swimmer. I love swimming in the ocean. I love swimming in the bay. We have to do everything we can to preserve our bay and ocean. We cannot pollute, simple as that. So our present system, the newer system of the pumps, they do work, but there's also the potential that they unsettle the bay as the water gets pumped out into the bay at a much more rapid pace than our old antiquated system, which is more sort of a gravity-based system. It does a fairly good job of keeping debris out of the bay that used to go in under our old system of sort of just gravitational, so anything that gets caught in our drains gets pushed out into the bay under the old system. The new system now has a vortex that captures all of the water bottles and things that get picked up, but it's still not good enough. We have to make sure that we continue to keep debris from going out, and we have to figure out a way to keep pollutants. So what happens is when rainwater gets swept off the street into the drains, any oil, any kind of chemicals, any pollutants that are in the street go with it, and that goes out into the bay. So we have to continue to invest in modern technology to make sure that whatever we're putting back out to the bay is clean before it goes out there, and that's another part of the flood mitigation program.
Same question?
Yeah, go ahead.
Sure. So, you know, the pumps are one thing, and I just spoke about that. And actually, the pumps are good at taking out the big debris. But it's the little stuff that I worry about, because that's what the fish eat. Okay, they will not eat a big can, but if a little piece of plastic gets through, they will eat that. And we're destroying our bay. Okay, I have a house on the water. We used to have grass behind there. We used to have little fish come and spawn, and then all the other fish that fed off of them, that grass is dying, and they're all disappearing, and that saddens me. But there's another issue here which we didn't touch on. We have canals full of debris, okay? And we don't have a budget for cleaning that. Instead, we have volunteers who go out in kayaks and canoes, and they go and they pick up the debris. As a city who prides itself on being a paradise coastal community with multi-islands, we need to have a budget for cleaning our canals. We need to have people that go out. We have people who sweep our streets. Why can't we put someone in a boat in our canals and clean the canals? Get into the mangroves, take out the plastic bags, take out the shopping carts, and clean our canals.
So now in reverse order from the opening statements, each candidate will have the opportunity to give a 2-minute opening or 2-minute closing statement, starting with Mr. Whitewood.
We're done? Yeah. Oh my God, that wasn't that bad, Benjamin. Thank you. He is amazing. You guys, just, give up with that. I think he's blushing. I've been here for a long time. My family grew up here. My wife's a native, my boys are natives. And I know this community. I know all of you. I run into you in Publix. I run into you at Temple. I run into you at community events. You know who I am. You know what you're going to get. And you know I'm going to make you proud. And you know when you see me at Publix or somewhere else on the street, you know that you have access to me, and you know that you can tell me, Mark, you did good, or Mark, I didn't agree with that one. But I'm your friend, and I'm your neighbor, and I've been that way for many years, and you know you'll have someone with access. Thank you.
Mr. Ariel.
Well, first of all, I want to apologize for my appearance. I'm here in shorts and polo because I was out knocking doors all day. I was actually with the firefighters, about to say they endorsed me in my candidacy for city commission, so we were knocking on doors all morning. We're going to go back out there now, so I apologize if I didn't draw a suit. But that's what my campaign has been about. It's been grassroots. I've been walking and knocking on doors for the past 5 months, getting to know all of you personally, becoming friends with all of you, and have sat in countless kitchens, backyards, and gotten to know the issues firsthand. So when I become your next city commissioner, I already have a long to-do list. The kind of leader that you'll get with me is someone with an open door policy. I've given all of you my personal cell phone, email. Many of you have used it. You know I respond very quickly to questions and get back to you. But what I also bring is a lifelong commitment to serve the community. I was also born here, raised here, moved to the beach 15 years ago, but I've been coming here since I was a kid, but born in Miami, and a very long tradition of civic involvement and leadership. I'm going to bring those skills to city government and make this a world-class city and a world-class city government. Thank you.
I want to thank both of you so much for coming.
Thank you, man.
We're going to take a brief 5-minute intermission, and then we'll start up again with the Group 6 debate.